The night was draped in a thick shroud of darkness as Sean climbed into his car, his breath forming misty clouds in the chilly air. He slid the key into the ignition, the engine roaring to life with a low growl. Tonight, Sean had to make a long drive across the desolate countryside, a journey he wasn't particularly looking forward to. As he pulled onto the empty road, the only sounds accompanying him were the hum of the tires on asphalt and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The darkness seemed to swallow the surroundings, and Sean's senses were on high alert. He couldn't shake off the feeling of unease creeping up his spine. Miles passed by, the monotony of the road weighing heavy on Sean's mind. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his attention in the rearview mirror. His heart skipped a beat as he saw the headlights of another car appear behind him, their beams piercing through the darkness like accusing eyes. Sean's grip tightened on the steering wheel as the car behind him drew closer, its presence casting a shadow of dread over him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the situation. Why would someone be following him on this desolate road at this hour? His mind raced with possibilities, each one more sinister than the last. Was it a coincidence, or was he being targeted? Sean's hands grew clammy as he struggled to maintain control over his racing thoughts. With each passing mile, the tension in the air thickened, suffocating him in its grip. As the road stretched out endlessly before him, Sean's anxiety reached its peak. The car behind him remained a constant presence, its headlights burning into his soul. He needed to find a way out of this situation, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, hunted even, by an unseen predator lurking in the darkness. Desperate for a reprieve, Sean's eyes scanned the horizon for any sign of civilization, but all he found was an endless expanse of darkness, swallowing him whole. The night seemed to stretch on forever, and Sean couldn't shake the feeling that he was trapped in a nightmare from which he couldn't escape. With each passing mile, Sean's nerves frayed a little more. The car behind him seemed to mirror his every move, an ominous shadow haunting his every step. He knew he had to do something, anything, to shake off this feeling of dread that had settled over him like a suffocating blanket. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as he pushed the accelerator, the engine roaring in protest as he sped down the deserted road. But no matter how fast he went, the car behind him remained hot on his tail, its presence a constant reminder of the danger lurking in the darkness. As the minutes turned into hours, Sean's exhaustion began to weigh heavily on him. His eyes drooped with fatigue, his mind clouded with fear. He needed to find a way out of this nightmare, but he was running out of options, running out of time. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught Sean's eye up ahead. He squinted through the darkness, trying to make out what lay ahead, and then he saw it, a narrow dirt road branching off from the main highway, disappearing into the dense forest beyond. With a surge of adrenaline, Sean veered off the highway and onto the dirt road, the car behind him fading into the distance as he disappeared into the trees. The forest closed in around him, enveloping him in its embrace as he plunged deeper into the unknown. The dirt road twisted and turned, leading Sean deeper into the heart of the forest. Branches scraped against the car, their eerie whispers adding to the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. But Sean pressed on, driven by a primal instinct to escape whatever darkness lurked behind him. Just when he thought he couldn't go any further, the dirt road opened up into a clearing, a small cabin nestled in the center like a beacon of hope in the darkness. With a sigh of relief, Sean pulled up in front of the cabin, the engine sputtering to a stop as he killed the ignition. As he stepped out of the car, a sense of calm washed over him, the oppressive weight of the night lifting from his shoulders. He had escaped the darkness, if only for a moment, and now he could finally catch his breath and gathered his thoughts. The cabin stood before Sean, its wooden facade weathered and worn from years of neglect. A chill wind whispered through the trees, sending shivers down his spine as he approached the front door. With a hesitant hand, he reached out and pushed it open, the hinges creaking in protest. Inside, the air was stale and musty, the only sound the faint crackling of the fireplace in the corner. Scene's footsteps echoed against the wooden floorboards as he ventured further into the cabin, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. The cabin was sparse, furnished with only the bare essentials: a rickety table and chairs, a threadbare couch, and a lumpy mattress in the corner. It was clear that no one had set foot in this place in years, and yet Scene couldn't shake the feeling that he was not alone. His nerves on edge, Scene lit a lantern and set it on the table, casting flickering shadows against the walls. He needed to gather his thoughts, to come up with a plan to escape whatever darkness had been chasing him on the road. But try as he might, his mind was a jumble of fear and confusion, his thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. As he paced the length of the cabin, his footsteps echoing in the silence, a sudden noise made him freeze in his tracks, a low guttural growl emanating from the darkness outside. Scene's blood ran cold as he strained to listen, his heart pounding in his chest. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Scene realized that whatever had been following him on the road had found him once again. And this time, there was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. He was trapped, alone in the darkness with whatever lurked outside the cabin door. Gripped by a sense of primal terror, Scene extinguished the lantern and huddled in the corner, his eyes fixed on the door as the growling grew louder and closer. He knew that whatever lay on the other side spelled his doom, and yet he was powerless to stop it. The darkness poured into the cabin like a flood, enveloping Scene in its suffocating embrace. His heart pounded in his chest as he strained to see through the inky blackness, his senses on high alert for any sign of movement. And then, out of the shadows, emerged a figure, a hulking silhouette with glowing eyes that pierced the darkness like fiery coals. Scene's breath caught in his throat as he realized what stood before him, a creature of pure primal terror, its form twisted and grotesque, like something out of a nightmare. With a primal roar, the creature lunged forward, its claws outstretched like talons as it closed in on Scene with terrifying speed. Scene's mind raced with fear as he scrambled for a weapon, anything to defend himself against this monstrous foe. But before he could react, the creature was upon him, its claws tearing through the air with lethal precision. Scene fought back with all his strength, his fists connecting with flesh and bone as he struggled to fend off the relentless assault. In the chaos of the struggle, Scene's hand closed around something solid, a piece of broken furniture, sharp and jagged. With a desperate cry, he swung it at the creature with all his might, the makeshift weapon finding its mark with a sickening crunch. For a moment, everything went still as Scene stared in disbelief at the fallen creature before him, its monstrous form now reduced to a lifeless heap on the floor. He had done it. He had defeated the darkness that had pursued him relentlessly, against all odds. But as Scene caught his breath and surveyed the carnage around him, he realized that his ordeal was far from over. The night still stretched out before him, dark and unforgiving, and he was still a long way from safety.